Joining us now, the media relations director for the Oklahoma Secondary Schools Activities Association, but I just know him as that state championship winning quarterback from Pond Creek, America, back in the day that came in and interned with us and then eventually went to work with us at Channel 4, and that's Shea Iven. I also know him as uh, team videographer and father of one of the standouts for the Edmond Cubs T-ball team, Turner Ivan, outstanding Cub that my wife and I have had the pleasure of going to watch them play. So Van Shea joins us now. Good morning, Van Shea.
Robert, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. And I wanted to have you on. I know this is kind of a downtime for people that are involved in, in high school and public schools in Oklahoma with the summertime. Secondary Schools Activities Association being a big part of that, and you do an outstanding job. In fact, I was talking to the audience in the first hour. I think it's a shame that because I do see these shows on Fox Sports Southwest from Texas, and of course when you're talking Fox Sports Southwest, you're talking a huge entity there. The shows they do just on a football Friday night, basically, a 3-hour talk show during the games, and then they come on with Craig Way and Randy Renner and all that group, or Rick Renner, excuse me. With their high school live show and highlights and all that. You were really that conduit. I think, at Channel 4, we did a lot of high school sports, but when you branched out on your own and did the Van Shea Iven High School Sports Express, I thought it was a great show for kids in this state, for high school athletes of all types to get exposure. Obviously, football was a big part of it because that gets a lot of people. I don't think people realized how much work it was. And that may be why somebody hasn't picked that ball or picked up that torch and run with it. But when you did, and I told the audience, I said, no one understands how hard a job that is, especially when you were doing it the way you were doing it versus having a monstrosity backing you like Fox Sports Southwest.
Yeah, it was a lot of work and it was a lot of hours. I would say it was more hours than work because it was so much fun. I mean, I had a blast doing it. It was just like, I have told people this, and I'm not saying it just because I'm on with you right now, but the hours you put in at Channel 4, no one at Channel 4 or 5 or 9 or 268, 25, 23, wherever in Oklahoma, have put in the hours that you did. I mean, you worked 7 days a week, and that was back when I don't even think Katie was born yet. I think it was just Zach at the time when I first started there, and the hours that you put in, but you enjoyed it, and you had fun, and you loved doing it, and that's the way that I felt when I was at Channel 4, and then when I was doing my show, and so those hours didn't bother me at all doing it. But I learned from, when I learned from you, I learned from Bob Berry Jr., I learned from Bob Berry Sr., that if you're covering OSU football, it's a big deal to OSU football fans. If you're covering the Oklahoma City Thunder, it's a big deal to Oklahoma City Thunder fans. Well, if you're covering Mountain View Gotebo softball, that's a big deal to the Mountain View Gotebo parents and to those kids. So when I did my show, that's the way I was taught, to make it a big deal for whether it was football or cross country or basketball or soccer or swimming or wrestling or tennis or golf or whatever. It's a big deal to those kids. So make it be a big deal and make it seem important to them. And it was a lot of fun. I would start the week of the All-State game. So that would be July 20th-ish. And from then until the first week of June, I wouldn't take a day off. Every day I was shooting something, editing something, setting up stories, doing stuff every day. Now, in the rest of June and the first part of July, I would slow down a lot and take several days off. But for about 10 ten and a half months, I mean, there wouldn't be a day off. I'd be shooting something every day, but it was so much fun and it was great. Now, once I got married and had kids and my priorities changed a little bit, I had chased other kids for, 25, 30 years. And so I was ready to start chasing my own. So, my priorities changed and I quit the show. I loved it. I could still be working at Channel 4 today and be happy. I wish, though, I would have started the High School Sports Express 10 years earlier. I worked at Channel 4 17 years, and I wish I would have started about 7 to 10 years earlier and gotten a chance to get more kids on there and feature more throughout the state. But it was a blast when I did it, and I miss it still today. Still today. I don't miss the hours, but I miss getting the chance to go to the games and meet the kids and the coaches and spotlight them, and that was a lot of fun doing that every week.
Yeah, and it won't be that long before, and this has happened to me because we covered a lot of high school sports at Channel 4, and you were a huge part of that when you came on board, and I think again that was when with Bob Senior, Bob was a terrific director, gave really good direction, which sometimes I was in trouble for not following. But no,
you
I
asked
mean,
for direction one night.
I did ask for direction. Would you give me a little direction?
But, and Bob Senior gave it to you. It was before an OSU basketball game in Gallagher. Yeah.
Yes, he did. But here's the thing, that treating everything you do like it's the Super Bowl, because for those people it is their Super Bowl. That came from Bob. I mean, he was the one that emphasized we're going to cover local. Now Bob was great about making sure the Major League Baseball scores were up to date. But he wanted local as much as you could, and that was really the pressure when you were working there, because you talk about some times of the year, like this time of the year, it's not always easy to go out and find local sporting events, and Bob always wanted something as much local in the sportscast as you could get, because he understood that's what made us different from ESPN, which had come on board and was doing so many things. Getting to it, I was going to tell you too, as you get older, you're going to have people you featured on the High School Sports Express that are going to see you somewhere and they'll walk up and say, I remember when you came to our town and you interviewed me. Hey, meet my kids. and they're going to be, like 13, 14, 15. It's like, oh my gosh, how old am I? That is one way to test your age, is when people that you did stories on come back to you and you realize, wow, I did a story on them when they were in high school.
We can do that. I know you can, and I'm right there with you. I mean, I played American Legion baseball for 3 or 4 years against Mike Gundy, and I remember sitting at Channel 4 in the little edit bay recording the Olympics when John Smith was wrestling in the Olympics. I was working at Channel 4. I covered Kenny Gajewski playing baseball for OU. And you can go down the list of Oklahoma. Josh Holliday. You and me and Josh Holliday and Matt Holliday went and did a story at the Air Force Base at the College World Series. And Matt Holliday sat in the back seat and cried because he was away from mom and dad. He was so little. And Josh sat there next to him. I don't know if you remember that. And Robbie Wine's kids, I believe, went with us.
Oh yeah.
And so I mean that's showing our age a little bit, but those I remember that like it was yesterday, taking them to the Air Force Base to tour it and do a story on an off day at the College World Series, and those were good times. I mean,
oh yeah,
I believe that was in '90. Yeah, when they played Georgia in the final was the year that we did that.
Yeah, because I know exactly where I was the night. Yeah, I know exactly where I was the night before that game in the final game in the College World Series. You and I were together at a place that doesn't even exist anymore. I guess it may exist. They don't run horse races there anymore.
I was gonna say. I'm guessing. I know where you were. You were at a window making a trifecta bet, and I was eating a hot dog over at the concession stand line.
You were a big part of that, though. You were a big part of that. Yeah, you were there. You were kind of like, oh, if you're gonna bet that much, add these horses. Bet that, and you know what? I'm like, wow, man, you're a good wingman at this deal. I like that.
You were
Hey, let
you were tipping the tellers, the people taking the bets. You were tipping them more money than I had in my bank account
that's
because you were
bull.
winning so much that weekend.
That was an all timer. I still occasionally tell that story. Um, you know what? Let's get let's venture over to something more serious. Um, you read stories all the time about high schools, not in Oklahoma, but other places. California is a state where they sometimes people have to pay. Um, they have to pay to play high school athletics. In this state, Bill Haston was just telling me about what Tulsa Union passed in a bond election and what they're going to do to Union Tuttle Stadium, and it's going to be fantastic. We see what the Edmond schools have done. They've all gone on campus with their
Right?
stadiums. I drove by Memorial the other day and was like, wow.
How cool is
High
that? Yeah.
schools, yeah, high school sports in Oklahoma. You're there in the control, the command center with the OSSAA. How healthy are high school sports in Oklahoma? Because it seems like, Van Shea, they're very healthy.
Yeah, we're pretty fortunate, and sometimes you don't know when you're just in one place. You don't know what it's like somewhere else. You always think the grass might be greener somewhere else, but we're getting ready to go to our national convention. I'm going to leave in a couple days in Indianapolis. It's the 100th year of the NFHS, and for people that don't know what the NFHS is, it's like the NCAA for Oklahoma State. The OSSAA is a member of the NFHS, the National Federation. So we're going to the national meeting, and there will be all 50 states will be represented. Some states have multiple organizations like the OSSAA in it. And so there will be probably 60-ish different organizations that will be there for it. And you hear the stories that other states are going through. And a lot of the things that we are dealing with, they do too. I mean, it's the same issues that every state's dealing with. But we are, I would agree with you. There's a lot of states that are hurting much more than we are, and we don't even realize what some of them are going through. You're talking about facilities, and you brought up Pond Creek a little while ago. Well, Pond Creek just put in an unbelievable football field, turf, AstroTurf field. It's the same turf, I believe, that the Dallas Cowboys have, and the same group put in the Dallas Cowboys turf, and an 8-lane track. Pond Creek's never had a track. Always had decent track teams, but have never had a track. We've never had a track to practice on, and now they've got an 8-lane track with a turf field and brand new press box, and they put in a new gym, kept the old gym, so they've got 2 nice gyms now. And you were talking just about the Edmonds and the Unions and the Class 6A schools, but Cherokee has a new one they put in a couple years ago, a turf field. So these are Class C football teams, as small as it gets, with these fantastic facilities. Ellick put one in several years ago that's just nice could be. So there's, from top to bottom, there's a lot of programs that are very healthy, and we're very fortunate that it is that way.
And again, I'm glad you brought up the smaller class schools and what they're doing, and because I had not heard that about Pond Creek, and that's fantastic to put the track in. And we're talking about we are talking about facilities there that are not cheap. Not communities have got to kind of give till it hurts a little bit to do that. But that's the other good thing about this state we live in. For the most part, people here believe in supporting the youth and supporting the future, and that's just, I think that's a big part of just Oklahomans.
Well, and that's what's so cool. I grew up in the small town and got a chance to experience that. Now live in Oklahoma City and see what it's like there. And I've said, and nothing against where I live or anything, but I said I would move back to Pond Creek tomorrow. Now, my wife says I'd be going without her and the kids, but I would love to have them grow up in a school system like Pond Creek. It was fantastic, and the good thing about those smaller schools is you do have support from everyone. It's tougher in Oklahoma City for an Edmond or a Moore to get Normans to get local support because there's so much going on and so many people don't have a tie to the school. But in those small schools, the mayor may be the PA announcer, and the president of the bank may be taking flipping burgers in the concession stand, and the guy running the grain elevator may be taking money at the gate, and everybody's involved, and everybody's at the game on Friday night. And if it's not a football playing school, it's the same way in basketball, at the Okarchis and the Lamegas and places like that, and the Frontiers. It's a big deal to all those people, and that's why those programs are successful year in and year out, is it's instilled in the younger generations and the younger kids in the school. They watch that growing up, and they want to be a part of it when they get up there, and that's why those programs are so successful.
Yeah, we've got some folks on the TPT line that want to ask some questions from Van Shea, and I'm gonna go to those. Before we do that, though, the OSSAA in particular has the championship events, and I know I was at the. It was a tough night weather-wise, but I was doing the 6A 2 state championship game between Stillwater and Bixby. On isn't that the NFHS? Their
NFHS
their
network,
streaming.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was doing it. Doing that game, and I know Broken Arrow and their big win in the 6A1 championship was that night as well. They were dealing with the same weather problems up in the Northeast we were. But you look at those and the attendance at those games. You look at the attendance for the big school basketball. You look again at the big house, and that's one of the great high school sporting events in the country. The small school state basketball championships in Oklahoma. You look at those championship events, and that's a good barometer. And Van Shea, those are really good. Attendance-wise, they bring out a lot of people.
They do. They bring out a lot. All of those that you mentioned, the wrestling state tournament brings out a huge crowd the weekend before the basketball state tournaments take place at the big house, and we're always trying to think of new ideas and do things different. And people always bring up how cool it is in Texas, where they play all the state championship games at the same site and play them in the same day. And it is fantastic because it's 74 degrees inside when it's kickoff, and it's dry, and you get to play all the games inside a dome, and it's nice. And we are pursuing doing that in Oklahoma. The only problem is we don't have a dome. And it could be an all-day event on December 10th in Oklahoma. It could be sleet and snow and drizzle, and could be miserable. And the coaches are on board, and they want to try to have it at one site. And what's the problem has been in the past is they're all on board if they can have that 7 p.m. game. Then when you tell them that they've got the 10 a.m. game, the first of 4 games on the day or 3 games, then they're not so excited about maybe playing all the games on the same day at the same site. But we're trying to do that. We've got feelers out. We sent out information to all the major universities in the state to see if any of them would be on board to help us out. We sent to OSU, we sent to OU, we sent to Tulsa, we sent to UCO. We've heard back from 3 of the 4. We're still waiting to hear back from one that's pretty close to where you're broadcasting from, and we'd love to hear back from them to see if they're interested too. But we're trying to make that happen where we can have it all at one site. And when we say all of it, that's from 6A1 all the way down to Class C. So it would be over 2 weekends, and we'd do it 2 or 3 days each weekend. And it would be a cool idea, and we want it to happen. The only problem is when you start doing that, it's in Oklahoma with no big stadium like you have in the St. Louis area or the Dallas area or the Houston area. You can run into some bad weather, and And you can do that if all the games are at the same time on one night, like we had last year. But it's a lot of those coaches are creatures of habit, and I get it. They want to play on Friday night at 7 o'clock because that's what they've done all year. You know, they're used to that Thursday night or Friday night or Saturday night at 7 o'clock. And then when you start switching times, then it gets a little, their schedule changes for them, and it gets a little tougher. But we have feelers out, and hopefully that'll be the plan, that if we can make it happen, that's what'll happen this year, is we'll get to be at one site for all the state championship games in football.
And you know what? I could even see. I know because of the size of the classes, 6A, the way it's split now becomes definitely the smallest in number of schools involved. That the championships end up on different weekends anyway. But if let's say you're in Edmond, and let's say you've got UCO, but you've also got access to the 3 Edmond high schools.
Mm-hmm.
Now you'd have games going on simultaneously. You wouldn't necessarily play them all in succession. You might have 2 games going on. The 2 8-man championship games maybe going on at different sites, but you could conceivably do it in one weekend. Norman, maybe not as easy. You've got a grass field that OU plays on. You do have the field Norman and Norman North share, but in Tulsa you've got multiple quality facilities. And like I said, at Edmond you would, and in Stillwater you'd have 2. I mean, Stillwater Stadium certainly can accommodate some of the smaller classes, and has for championships. And then you've got Oklahoma State with Boone Pickens. Of course, I guess they haven't responded yet, so maybe somebody will hear this and we forgot to respond to the OSSAA.
Well, I think they will. I think they will. And even if it's we can't make it happen, or we're not interested, that's okay, because we have heard that from some of them that have responded back, and we've heard that in past years too, that they're not available for various reasons. And there's a lot going on that time of year. There's graduation on college campuses, and they have football teams still playing. They have basketball teams that are playing, and it makes it rough with parking and different things, and there's a lot going on. So it's not just as easy as saying we want to go play here, so that's where we're going to have 9 football state championship games. We have to work around other things. There was some question last year, some people were asking that they didn't know, and they just don't follow high school sports enough, why there's a break in between 6A1 and 6A2 between the semifinals and the finals, because they only play 3 rounds of the playoffs. They play the first round, the semifinals, and then they have a week off to play the state championship game. Well, that was per their request of the coaches and the schools. They didn't want to have the finals the week before, which would have been Thanksgiving weekend, because they wanted the kids to experience the whole state championship week at school with the excitement and everything going on with school in session. So if you do it the Thanksgiving week, they're out of school on Thursday and Friday, so they miss out on a couple of days there, and maybe out of school on Wednesday, some of them. So that was from the Coaches Association, the Football Coaches Advisory Committee, and the administrators that said, we want our kids, if they are lucky enough to make it to a state championship game, we want them to experience the full effect of it and have the chance to have all the excitement at school all week long, and then play the game on Friday night or Saturday if that's the case, and get a chance to experience all that. So that was brought up from them, and that's what they wanted, and that only affects 4 teams of a bye week in the playoffs in the semifinals, because it's the 2 in 6A1 and the 2 in 6A2, and so that wasn't something. Some people don't understand that we don't make the rules in this building. There's no one down the hall that says, you know what, let's
the membership does.
The membership does. The 483 schools that are members of the OSSAA make the rules, and they decide on things. we're in charge of enforcing the rules and carrying out the playoffs. So, and the number one priority when we set up stuff is for the kids and the schools. And we want the fans to have a great experience. We want the media to have a great experience. We want everything else too, but the first priority has to be every time for the kids who are participating and for the schools. And that's who we answer to, are the kids in the schools, and we want everyone to have a good experience. Absolutely we do. That's part of our job, but the biggest part is making sure the kids have great memories, win or lose, and they can look back in 5 years, 10 years, 50 years and say, man, my high school experience of playing sports and being in the band and participating in one-act play and speech and debate tournament, that was fantastic, and I enjoyed all that, and I want my kids to do the same thing. And I look back on my memories from high school, and it was some of the best memories of my life, getting a chance to play high school sports and competing in the playoffs and playing at the big house and winning state in football. And I mean, those are some of my best memories, and that's probably why I got into the profession I did. I wanted to continue to follow sports was because of the experiences I had in high school when I got a chance to play several sports at a small school, but that was one of the beauties of it. You got to play multiple sports there.
I'm going to ask Van Shea to hang on and join us for another segment, but I'm going to get this question in because this comes from a TPT or TPT 281. If you get this before Van Shea is off, ask him if that's from the wind farm dollars, how Pond Creek is able to upgrade their facilities.
I think a lot of it was. I think a lot of it was wind farm, and might have even been some oil money, but they had the new basketball gym, which is fantastic. They added some stuff at the school, and then the football field with the 8-lane track, and that's just like everything else. A lot of people didn't want any part of those wind farms, didn't want those windmills up, and it's an eyesore, and I get all that. But it's also pretty cool when the school reaps some benefits of that too and gets a chance to upgrade all of their facilities because of those wind farms that came in.
All right, and one other thing I wanted to throw out there as far as the high school stuff. Do you know? Because I was kind of wondering. I've been at AT&T Stadium, Jerry's place. And Pond Creek got the same. Do you know what company makes? Because I know Oklahoma State's is made by AstroTurf. It's actually the people who originated AstroTurf. This is their new brand. That's what Boone Pickens has. I believe Texas has Field Turf. But do you know what did Pond Creek put in?
I do know. I'm going to have to look it up. So I'll give that to you after the break. I'm going to look it up right now.
And that's cool because I'm kind of thinking it may be the same thing Arkansas put in because of the Arkansas ties with Jerry Jones, and it's kind of it's crazy. Arkansas put in it's called Synthetic Power Blade 2.5, which, man, that almost sounds like something you'd see on Star Wars,
I think Pond Creek's was. I think it's Hellas. I might be wrong. I'm gonna HELLAS.
Okay.
I'm gonna continue to look it up. It's something like that. Let me look it up. So.
If that's the case, I can tell you there is a Big 12 school that has it. Baylor has Hellas Matrix Artificial Turf.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Okay, so that's what they've got at Baylor. That's interesting. All right, we'll come back with Van Shea. When we come back, we'll switch from OSSAA and the health of high school sports in Oklahoma, which overall is really good, to Channel 4 Memories. We'll come back with Van Shea Iven, the Media Relations Director for the Oklahoma Secondary Schools Activities Association and a Channel 4 alum, and the one man that you can credit with covering high school sports in this state better than anybody ever has, and probably, unfortunately, better than anybody ever will. That would be Van Shea Iven. We'll come back after this. We've got Van Shea Iven with us. Let's get back with him. I was going to check and see if we have any more TPT questions. You check on your turf?
That's what it was, Hellas.
Yeah. Well, and
And there's
TPT
actually a
51.
picture of it if you go. I just Googled it, and there's actually a picture of Pond Creek's turf on there. But it is
Oh,
it is
cool.
so sweet. They've got a great setup there, and they only got to play one game there last year because the construction. It wasn't their fault. It was the rain and other things going on. But they just got to play one game there. So they had senior night and homecoming and everything on the last game of the regular season, and they played everything else. Played 2 games, I think, neutral site, and everything else was road games last year.
Well, and one of your fellow Pond Creekers, TPT 512 from Pond Creek, Hellas bid their cheapest quality of turf and put in their best. How about that? Bid their cheapest quality of turf and put in the best, just so they could use it for an Oklahoma showcase, since they don't have many customers here. We also have 8 home games this year, which you were saying, since it was under construction most of the season last fall. So outstanding. That comes from TPT 512 out of Pond Creek.
Well,
All
the
right.
sales rep that sold it to him, I don't know if it's sales rep or what, was David Fisher, and he was the athletic director at UConn for a while, and he's the one that got UConn's new stadium built and their turf put in, and he had been in Texas as an athletic director and coach for a while, then came back to Oklahoma, and so he did all that at UConn. Then he went to work for this company, and so he's trying to get in Oklahoma and get a lot of their facilities upgraded through Hellas, and he was the one that got it in at Pond Creek. So it's fantastic. It is so nice, and those kids are, the nice thing about that turf, and Stillwater has unbelievable facilities there for their high school, but the nice thing for Pond Creek is now they can do Little League games there every weekend. They can have stuff every weekend and not worry about when they get to weeks 8, 9, 10, and in the playoffs when they're hosting games, the field being all torn up. So that's a huge advantage for a small town like that they've never had before. Their band can practice on it every morning. They don't have to be in the parking lot and worried about being on the field and messing it up. So, I mean, there's just a lot of advantages outside of the football team that you don't think about.
No, that's great. Ben Shea Iven with us, and before he was working for the Oklahoma Secondary Schools Activities Association, many people know him as the host and the originator and innovator of Ben Shea Iven's High School Sports Express. Before that, he was, as he mentioned, 17 years at Channel 4. He actually put in more years at Channel 4 than I did, which, that's because he came on when I was there. And I think you remember, I mean, we got a lot of memories. And what I was going to ask, I mean, obviously things have changed, and that's what I tell a lot of young people that are in the media business now. And maybe for them it is easier or more fun, whatever, with social media and with the way I know this. You don't get nearly as much of a workout going to do a story with the camera and the equipment as we did back in the day. But when you look back on Channel 4, and obviously we miss the people we work with, Bob Berry Jr. I know every once in a while I see Robbie Robertson and of course I was there with Ron Thulin. So when I see Ron, we have memories, and you and I both do share memories of Oliver Murray. And you know what? Back in the day, I can remember. Yeah, I would go, "Dead Oliver Murray," and now whenever I see Oliver, I hug him, and I I learned a lot. Oliver Murray, he helped mold me. How can I not like a guy like that? But when you look back on Channel 4, what are some of your great memories?
Oh, it was a perfect time for me to be doing it, because to be in the sports business and traveling and getting a chance to go to NCAA tournaments and Final Fours and College World Series and bowl games. I mean, I've got a map. You've seen it in my house, and I've got a pin in all the places that I got to travel. And I think it was 30-some states that I went to ball games in and covered different events and just had a blast. But it was a perfect time for me because I wasn't married. I didn't have any kids. I had no commitment, so I could be gone for 4 straight weeks for the Big 8 basketball tournament, then the first round of the NCAAs and the Sweet 16, then the Final Four. and it wasn't a problem, and now with 2 kids and a wife, those things are much tougher to make happen, and I wouldn't want to do it now. I really wouldn't. I miss doing all that, but my favorite part of it was, and this, I'm not just saying it again, but my favorite part was getting a chance to work with you and work with Bob Jr. and work with Bob Sr. And, there would have been a lot of great places to go work, and I was lucky to get to start in Oklahoma City and only work there and not have to go anywhere else, where you kind of know the landscape and the colleges and the high schools and all of that. But there could have been, and I never had it, I didn't want to go to a bigger market. I didn't want to go anywhere else. This is where I wanted to be. But the chance to work with people like that, I could have been at 1,000 different jobs, and might have been better jobs for a lot of people, but I wouldn't have enjoyed them as much because my bosses were Bob Sr., Bob Jr., and you. And that was, people ask me all the time, said, what all jobs have you had, and what was your favorite one, and which ones you liked the best? And I said, well, my first 2 jobs I ever had, my boss was Junior, Senior, and Robert Allen. My second job I had was doing my show, and I was my boss. So, it doesn't get much better than that when you have to say that you're working for a living, if you consider that work. But man, it was fun getting a chance to cover all that stuff, and every day. I mean, I never. Now I can't say I never got up and said I didn't want to go to work today. I can say that I never got up and said I didn't want to go to work today. Now, there were some times on my day off when you called about 6:30 in the morning and said, I've set up a story, so let's go cover it, that I may not have been too excited about. But once I got up and got there, I enjoyed doing it. But there was never a day that I would consider work. My dad was a farmer, and he would work more before 6:30 on Monday morning than I would in a whole week, as far as hard manual labor work. But it was fun, and that's the way it was supposed to be. Sports are supposed to be fun, and that's what my job was for 30 years in TV. It was a lot of fun covering sports.
It was, and it was always fun, being with you. I can remember, I think the first time I really remember being on the road may have been when you came with us to the Astrodome when Oklahoma State played Houston. And then maybe the most memorable road game we ever had was in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Mm-hmm. That's what I thought you were going to say. No, that Houston game, the 35-0, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh. Did Thurman go off that game? Maybe. I can't remember. I think Thurman went off that game and had
Thurman went off, and Gundy did pretty well that day.
Uh-huh.
It was impressive.
Now, I came back. I flew up there, and then I came back on Sunday. You stayed and covered a game, the Houston
Oilers
NFL.
And the Rams.
Okay,
Oilers
you
and the
stayed
Rams.
and covered that. I came back and actually flew back on a late flight, maybe on Saturday night, and it was a late flight, and there weren't 10 people on there. And the flight attendant, I was sitting in the back and had on an Oklahoma State shirt or something, and the flight attendant asked something about OSU. Anyway, she was a former Oklahoma State pom-pom girl, and she was the flight attendant on Southwest that night, so we talked about the game.
Good for you. Yeah.
And
that was a bonus, wasn't it?
That was. There was, man, we had those College World Series. I tell people that might have been my favorite thing to cover out of everything. I mean, that, and I was spoiled because when I started, I bet the first 8, 9, 10 years that I was at Channel 4, we went to the College World Series every year. OSU went every year but 2, and those 2 years just so happened that OU made it. So we went every year. So it was like you just marked it down on your calendar that you were going to be in Omaha during that time frame, and you didn't take vacation, you didn't do anything else. It was like it was a regular season game. You just knew it was going to happen. You were going to be there. But that was so much fun at Rosenblatt. And what was the Zestos? Was that the the hamburger ice cream place right there next to it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I tell you,
That
that
was
place.
awesome.
If it wasn't for you and Bob Jr. and me, that place would have gone out of business years ago. But we kept them
Oh,
in
I don't know.
business. That was
Well,
some good
and
stuff.
well, and I hate to say it, but we got to go. We got to get to a break here. But here's the one thing I was going to say to that. You were in a good position for those World Series in that you did not have a wife and children, because I
Right.
can tell you, if you ask my wife to this day, what was the least favorite event for you that your husband covered? She will
College
tell
World.
you it. Yeah, because she goes, every time you went, it felt like you were gone for a month. And I
Yeah.
said, well, in some cases, it was close to it. So,
My
oh
my
yeah,
real
when
quick,
you went,
my first I signed my contract full time and walked from the news director's office through the station into the parking lot, got in the car, and you and me drove to Omaha, and we were there for 11 days or whatever when they played Georgia in the final. That was when I started my first full day at Channel 4 as a full timer. I was there part time, intern, and part time before, but first day as a full timer, I signed my contract, walked through, got in the car, and we drove to Omaha, and we were there for 11 days or whatever, and just had an absolute blast.
yeah, it was, and it was fun because it was like going to a county fair for that whole time, and the way Omaha treated. I can tell you, it's a little different with TD Ameritrade, but it's still one of the greatest events out there. Hey, Van Shea, you're one of the greatest, period, and you're like a brother, and I adore your family, and it was good to have you on. It was good to get a perspective on Oklahoma high school sports, and enjoy your convention coming up. Oddly enough, you're going to Indianapolis for the meetings with basically the organization that's like the high school NCAA, and that just happens to be in Indianapolis too. Go by and say hello to those folks.
It's right next door.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
Hey,
are
Van
they are
Shea, I
side
appreciate.
by side. So if you've got anything you
Yeah.
need me to take up with them, you just holler and we'll go over and talk to them.
No, no. I just like to stay out of there. I like to stay out of their radar. Hey, have a great rest of your summer, and we'll look forward to the high school sports cranking up again. It'll be here before we know it.
Thanks, Robert. If you ever need anything from us, anybody in the office is ready and willing and able to come on and speak with you anytime you need something.
Yeah, and always have been. So thanks. All right,
Thanks,
Van
Robert.
Shea
Take
Iven,
care.
everybody. All right, Van Shea Iven, and we'll come back with more. Stay with us.